I'm going to talk to you today about pattern interrupts and what patterns are and why they're a good thing and why they're a bad thing. So what happens basically is we live our life. We don't live our life in a bubble or isolation. We live in a world around us. And what happens is that world casts influence on us. And obviously a lot of the influence is cast when we're a little kid. So when we're a little kid, who are our influences? Our influences are people like our mum and our dad and our teachers and our siblings and those other people around us. And that's why our parents are always concerned for us, and we're concerned for our kids when they get older. Do they get in with the wrong crowd? Because obviously the wrong crowd is going to influence them in a certain way. Back then when we see things happening, we start behaving a certain way. We start reacting to situations in a certain way. So for instance, if we grow up in an environment where we are told, where we know that we're poor, we know that we've got no money to spend. So for instance, we go to the supermarket and we would never buy a red capsicum because the red capsicums are way too expensive. We would only ever buy a green capsicum. And this was an example in a video that I heard the other day, and that's why I thought I'd bring it up. And the example was that the guy had just had a phone call with his accountant. And this guy is Jerry Robert, who does a program called Publish a Book and Grow Rich. And he basically had heard from an accountant that day that he had made $232,000, not in a year, but in a single month. 1 month, $232,000. And he got the phone call from his accountant. He then got a call from his wife saying, hey, dude, can you go to the supermarket and buy me some groceries, including some capsicums? Anyway, he went to the supermarket, he goes there and he picks up 5 red capsicums, puts them in his trolley, in his little basket, and goes towards the counter. And then he just stops and he freezes. And he looks down and he goes, no. And he goes back and he puts the red capsicums back into the veggie bin, and he grabs 2 green capsicums instead. Even though red capsicum's much, much nicer. I get really annoyed with my partner when he buys green instead of red. Oh my God, why bother? So the whole point is that the reason he did that was because even though he didn't realize it at the time, and he realized it a little bit later, it was what had happened in his past. That was what caused him to put those capsicums back. Clearly, if he just earned $232,000 in a month, then paying for 5 capsicums was not going to be a big deal. But his patterns, his brain, his voices, his head was telling him, no, you cannot buy those. They are too expensive. You can't afford those. So the problem is we have things that come into our being. Patterns that start forming because of things that we do, things that we experienced, and they start forming lifelong patterns. Another prime example is me with dishwashing detergent. When I moved out of home, I, did my first shop and and of course I bought Sunlight dishwashing detergent because that's what my parents used. Now for me, I'm allergic to a lot of stuff, and I just thought I was allergic to dishwashing detergent as a whole, but you still have to use it. So I was just like, I put up with the red hands and the rash and stuff. And it wasn't until, I think a few years later, it just suddenly occurred to me when I saw it, one of the ads for Palmolive, and it's soft on your hands and all that stuff. And I went, I wonder if I should just try a different brand. And so finally I went and tried a different brand, and I went and tried Palmolive. And oh my God, I'm not allergic to Palmolive. So all those years growing up with my parents, and then in the first few years that I went out on my own, I suffered with Sunlight soap that I was allergic to. I'm like, how freaking ridiculous is that? But it was because that was what was ingrained in me. I didn't think on my own account to go and do things. So what we do is every year we set goals. So we set goals, for instance, or New Year's resolutions we'll take as a prime example. We set a New Year's resolution to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight this year. Clearly I'm in a position I need to lose weight. Okay. For a start, when we talk like that, we're talking down about ourselves, which is not a good thing. We are also talking in negative terms of goal setting. That's not a good thing. So instead, what you need to do is you need to reframe that in a more positive way. So it might be so that I can fit in my, size 10 jeans to go to some event or something. We can reframe it in a different way. But that's a whole different story about goal setting. But the point is, what happens, right? You set that goal or that New Year's resolution. By halfway through January, you've probably already dropped off. And again, it just becomes oh, that's all right. There's always next year. Next year I'll do it. And you just don't do it. Now, a lot of that comes down to we're repeating the same patterns. Same thing in our business. I've got a lady I'm working with that she'll do something like she will stall and procrastinate. So her current one for stalling and procrastinating is trying to find banner images for her website. She stalls, she procrastinates, she just doesn't put anything up. And because it's got nothing to do with the images that she's finding. Nothing. There were plenty of images that would have suited her website perfectly fine. That wasn't the problem. The problem was she is self-sabotaging. There is something that's holding her back. She doesn't believe she's good enough to be a business owner. She doesn't believe she's ready. And the problem is I can see this, I can have conversations with her, but until she's willing to deal with it, I can't help her. I can lead her to water, I can do the lead to horse to water thing, but I can't make her drink. And it's really frustrating. So that is something that there's a pattern interrupt that's got to happen. If she wants to change, if she wants to get her business going, then she actually has to make change. And this is what I'm talking about today is pattern interrupt. That's what we need to do, is we need to go, what is causing that pattern? Why do we have this pattern? Why are we self-sabotaging? Because when we're self-sabotaging like that, what we're often doing is protecting. When we're doing these patterns, these protections, were put in there for a reason. So she has been through, this particular lady's been through a bad relationship and things. She's had a lot of bad things happen to her. And she's just making that call that this is going to be another bad thing that's going to happen to her. And she's just not willing yet to unlet the bad or open up the Pandora's box to actually dig in and work out why she's doing this to herself. So with this, it is really important to work out why you're not getting something done. So if you have something that keeps happening, the whole thing about, which one is it? Freud's thing is that about if you repeat the same mistake over and over again, that's a sign of crazy, being crazy. If you keep repeating the same thing over again, if you keep doing the same thing keeps happening and it's not what you want, you've got to go stop. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And sometimes it is a lot of deeper work. Sometimes it's quite superficial, but usually it's much, much, much deeper. We've got to go down, down, down and work out what is causing that. And often it's going way back to childhood. Now, I did a coaching course last year, and there was an exercise we had to do called the vision walk. And honestly, I'm not a touchy-feely person. And as you kind of know, I'm a tell it like it is kind of girl. Anyway, this particular exercise was a bit touchy-feely and it was a bit woo-woo and all that. And I'm like, I don't even know, I'm really into this. I don't really get it, rah, rah, rah. Anyway, this lady was walking along this thing guided by me, doing all the NUS guiding stuff. And, I'm trying to talk empathetically and quietly, and that in itself is freaking hard. Anyway, trying to do that. Anyway, so she's walking along, and her thing, this particular scenario, you look at your childhood, and you look at a time when you were a leader in your childhood. And so she talked about a time she was a leader in her childhood. And she said, when I was about 5 years old, 6 years old, me and this other little girl used to get together and we'd skip around the school and we'd get everyone could come behind us. And she'd form this whole little posse, this whole little group behind her. And she'd be this leader. And so she talked about that. And then she moves towards the next step and blah, blah, blah. And we asked her certain questions and that. And I'm thinking, this isn't doing anything. It's not working. She literally moved to the next step and she burst into tears. And I'm like, holy crap, what just happened? Because like I said, it didn't seem like it was connecting. And she moved to the next step and it was like, holy moly, everything opened up. And so I let her cry, I gave her a space to cry and stuff. And then I said to her, so, what are you feeling? What's this bringing up? And it came that she realized that what she's doing now, which is actually being a sales coach and sales trainer, was something that she had effectively pushed down since she was a little kid. And she looked back at that time and she goes, back then I was this happy, out there person, and I was pushing myself and I was doing all this amazing stuff. And then because of other people and suppression she felt from certain quarters, she put all that inside and became that little meek, mild person that didn't want to put herself out there. And then she's going, because she was in her late 50s, I think. She just felt like that moment, she felt, oh my God, all these years I've wasted, all these years I could have been sharing and communicating and helping people. And it just hit her like a ton of bricks. So that is what patterns are about, and about where they're formed. So in her childhood, after that leadership sort of time, when she had that great leadership, she had a time of very negative, very compressed, very pushed down. And that is what created the pattern for her future. And she lived by that for many years before she finally started breaking from it. Now, she'd obviously done stuff to break from it, but she was still talking quite negatively at these sessions. She was still bringing in a lot of negativity, and she'd still had that hanging over her. And once she had this cry and this freedom to realize what it was from, completely changed her. And roll on a year later, she's just released a book recently, which hopefully will arrive today in the mail. But she's just a completely different person. She is so out there and so bubbly, and she's that person she was when she was 5 or 6 years old before she got squashed. So I want you to think about things that you do that you go, I don't know why this is not working for me. I don't know why I'm not getting ahead. I don't know why I'm doing this goal and it's just not getting anywhere. So that's what I want you to think about, because there are definitely reasons for it. And I can take you on a vision walk, and there are a number of other coaching techniques we can use to actually uncover what has caused that particular issue. But hopefully that will resonate with some of you. But I hope this will actually just spark a little bit of thought for you guys, and you will find something useful in that. So thanks, guys. I will catch you later. Bye, team.